Welcome back to the On Deck Circle podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Six Pack. I am your in need of a haircut host, so I'm keeping the beanie on today. But Jason, you always wear a hat. I guess I usually wear a hat, but the beanie inside is not a look that I'm personally proud of right now. It's just because the hair is a disaster. And I know that the people that watch our podcast, aka my mom and my cousin, like to see their cousin and their son looking pristine on camera. So that is why we are here today. But Jason, my top 5 favorite day of the year is happening on Saturday for me. Can you take a guess on what that is?
Yes. Shall we wait till after the opening?
No.
Oh, okay. Boston Red Sox season tickets are released.
No, it is the Royal Rumble.
Oh shit! Yeah, I should have known.
And Jason, I ask this question every year. I'm gonna ask again. I even went back and listened to our answers from last year.
Okay.
I believe it was Pete Alonso and Aaron Judge were both of our answers.
Okay.
You're not allowed to pick those two. So what I want you to do is come up with 2 names. One person that would win the Royal Rumble of baseball players, and one person to lose immediately in a Royal Rumble. Ready, set, go. I completely forgot about the intro. It caught me by surprise. I was ready to, because I usually do like a bop to the old song.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Man, you always pin these weird wrestling questions on me.
I do.
Yeah. No pun intended with the pin, but I think I'm gonna go a little bit similar aspect and who would win the Royal Rumble. I'm gonna say Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Good one.
I feel like he's a nice, muscular, big, thick boy. He can hold his own in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And for the one that goes out to eat the first, I contemplated this for a minute, and I'm trying to think of like who couldn't hold their own, and who's like, it's like I wanted to go Altuve, but that seems like too much of a layup. So I'm gonna go with the homer pick of Nick Madrigal just getting tossed out of the ring immediately.
Right. Good one. I'm going to go with a hometown pick as well. And that's going to be Tristan Cassis.
I was going to say, as soon as you said.
He's a big boy. Nevers is too doughy. Cassis is he's hulking, as they say. And my first one out would be Ruiz for the A's, the one that steals the bases.
Oh yeah, he's a little scrawny guy too. Yeah,
but it's a small ring, so I don't know what else.
Maybe he could just run around and not be caught.
Yeah, I guess he could be like a Rey Mysterio. He's kind of quick.
This is true.
But I'm gonna stick with that, or like Alek Manoah, just because he's lazy.
That's good. He would just stand there, and they would just be allowed to be. He would allow people to just clothesline him over the top rope for sure. Real quick, who is the favorite to win the Royal Rumble? Is there a favorite to win the Royal Rumble?
Chicago's very own Jason Beckner.
CM Punk?
CM Punk.
Right? He's back, right?
He's
nice.
Back.
Look at me dropping WWE knowledge.
Yeah.
Also, I'm sure you saw this, but Netflix.
Dude,
Raw.
Pumped. One negative, though. Can't flick. Can't change the channel on like a Netflix.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So like on commercials and stuff.
But I could do second screen, like just throw it on my laptop. It's easier to throw it on my laptop, I guess. But yeah.
Technically, you wouldn't have commercials because it's on Netflix. So
correct. It is going to be commercial free for certain users. I didn't know Netflix had tiered users.
Yeah, it recently changed. It recently changed to be like Hulu. You know, you can pay like the base price of Hulu and get commercials, or you can pay like $15 and get no commercials. Netflix adopted that, but yeah, we digress. I'm
excited though.
WWE talk. Before we get into our topic tonight, real quick, you need to sign up and get access to our many different benefits of becoming an all-access member, including our Discord. Tons of stuff in there right now. I know the DFS is always popping off in the Discord. You can get personalized questions answered in your Discord. We also have access to all of our award-winning rankings and things like that. You can do that by becoming an all-access member at fantasysixpack.net/plans. Get up on that going. But yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about, we're going to be kicking off our 2-week, 2-part preview of we just recently had our top 10 prospect listings come out, positional rankings, top 10 at each list. You can get that on our website at fantasysixpack.net. I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through some of these. I've written some of them. A couple of the other Dynasty members have written some of them. But before we do that, we did have a little bit of breaking news this week. We had some free agent movement.
Finally.
We had one of the bigger names still available, Rhys Hoskins, signs with the Milwaukee Brewers, which I thought, I know we're getting late in the year, right? So it's a little bit of settling, but I think the Brewers got a bit of a steal here. 2 years, $34 million, opt out after the first year. You get arguably a top 10 first baseman, if not right outside the top 10. Huge power. I think he's averaging about 30 home runs plus a season. Now, he goes from that Philly lineup to the Milwaukee lineup, which is a little bit of a downgrade. The pitching or the ballpark factor are pretty much right around the same. To me, if you're a Rhys Hoskins owner, I don't think this maybe a little bit of a downgrade. But what do you think? Are you still in on Rhys or out or?
I'm definitely in. I'm always in on the news cycle. If someone signs today, I'm in on them, no matter who it is. That's kind of a detriment to me. But if you told me Rhys Hoskins, he's a Brewer, both literally and figuratively, built for Milwaukee, the actual city. I'm not even talking baseball at this point. He's a cheesehead just by the look of him. He's, again, kind of like a hulky, like a bigger dude, kind of, I don't want to use the word frumpy, but thick. Thick is a
thick boy.
He's a thick boy, and I think he's just going to fit in very well in Milwaukee as a resident.
He's 6'4", 245, so definitely in that thick boy. So right now, what's up?
He could win the Rumble.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, that's is one we should have talked about as one of our picks at the beginning of the year. But real quickly, a lot of his numbers, it's both the Steamer and the ATC have his projections this year right now, pretty much just in line with what he's been doing. It's pretty much hard to get any sort of bump or decrease with going from again, Milwaukee's got a bit of a sneaky lineup. Right now he's slated to hit cleanup behind guys like Yelich, Contreras, Frelick. So, the RBI opportunities are still going to be there. The home run power is still there. So you're looking around 30 home runs, probably 80 RBIs, 80 runs scored. Doesn't get a hit for high average, but still going to have a nice high OBP. So good for those OBP leagues. I don't think he gets much of a downgrade here for going from Philly to Milwaukee. I think you can still have a lot of those opportunities in that lineup for sure.
I agree.
All right, let's get to our topic of the night. We're just gonna go around the horn here. I feel like we're gonna break it down in 2 parts, like I said. Go through 4 of the positions this week and then 4 next week. But yeah, let's get started. Let's just go around the horn. We'll start here with the catchers first, and I'm just gonna go through them in numerical order. I feel like it's just easiest. Otherwise, it kind of just the ticker kind of blows the reverse order. But 1, Ethan Salas. 2, Dalton Rushing. 3, Harry Ford. 4, Diego Cartaya. 5, Kyle Teal. 6, Kevin Parada. 7, Ivan Herrera. 8, Daniel Susak. Blake Mitchell at 9. And Ted is Edgar Guerrero. Now, catchers are a weird prospect to me.
Yeah.
Most of them nowadays, you're either a good defensive catcher and you stick there, or you're an offensive catcher that just moves off and goes to first base or DH. So with that being said, we still have to play catchers in fantasy and dynasty. So it's get them, I guess, sometimes getting a good prospect ahead of time is good because you can get their catcher eligibility before they lose it for those first couple of years. But again, a catcher is never someone that I'm seeking out as a dynasty player. I don't draft a lot of them in first-year player drafts. I don't trade for them. I just somehow look for – and I play in, unfortunately, a lot of two-catcher leagues. I pretty much just punt catcher. The catcher is like the tight end of fantasy football. You just hope that you get a semi-decent one that can hold his own. But I think one of the biggest spotlights in this position is obviously Ethan Salas, the number one overall catching prospect. He, the younger brother of Jose Salas, yeah. And I think the biggest thing with him is his age. He's only 17, I believe.
And he played in not triple A. He played in spring training, I think, last year.
Yes. The Padres have been very aggressive with him. He made his debut in spring training in 2023, which is a feat on his own. Most international signings at 16, 17 aren't even not even stateside. They're still in like Dominican summer leagues and winter leagues. So the fact that he's even there playing and getting opportunities against major league pitchers is huge. It's very intriguing what they do with him this year. I could definitely see, this is a guy that can be up in the majors by his, 18 or 19 years old.
Yeah.
The fact, like I said, the fact that they're putting him in these aggressive assignments is huge. I think it says a lot of what they think about him and what we should think about him as well. I'm trying to see so he doesn't even turn 18 until this summer.
Jesus Christ.
So
he was
16. He made it to Double A in 2023.
That's wild.
Yeah. Had his little bit of up and downs here, obviously in this season. But again, you're talking about a 17-year-old in Double A going against like 20, 21, and 22-year-olds. It says a lot. So definitely someone I'm looking forward to see how he develops this year. Is there anybody else on this list that you think you're worth highlighting?
Yes.
I'm sure there's at least one.
Yep. So there is one, but I'm going to ask you a question and then I'll talk about my guy.
All right.
How many of these people would you be chasing, and who are they? Chasing as a dynasty?
That's a good question. So I made this list. I'm the one that wrote this list.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So and then I'll touch on my guy after. Perfect.
So as I was doing the research, there's about the top 3 is who I'd pretty much go after right now. There's a few that I could see getting maybe buying low on and seeing like, how low you could get these guys just because they're new. Like the guy you're going to talk about for one is someone I think you can get maybe at a low right now. But all of those that I'm chasing, I would actively seek out Salas, Rushing, and Ford. That's pretty much that's the extent I would go to actually try to acquire any of these players.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about my guy, Kyle Teal, obviously.
Yeah.
And what I thought, his start last year, which I think it was Chris Blessing that we had on last season, right?
Yeah.
I brought him up to him during that show, and he poo-pooed him. He was like, no, he's nothing. And Chris, respect him, knows a whole lot more about baseball. He's forgotten more about baseball than I know, and especially when it's about prospects. But Teal hits. That's really all that matters. And he's a good catcher. He's one of like as you stated, it's hard to you usually find the defense first or the bat first. Teal is pretty advanced in both, and him being on my favorite team. If he wasn't on the Red Sox, I probably wouldn't know these things, but I do because they're pushing these rookies and guys they draft. So like all their marketing is like, oh, look at Kyle Teal. This is what he did. This is what he did here. But definitely someone that as a Red Sox fan, I'm excited about. And to answer my own question, there are 2 people on this list that I would roster.
Okay.
And that is Ford and Teal. Salas, you won't be able to get him from anybody because they think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But you know what? He's nowhere close to like Adley Rutschman, where Adley Rutschman was as a prospect. And Adley Rutschman's going to be the best catcher in the league for the next 10, 15 years. So it's just so hard to like really value catching prospects when you can just kind of find like Shea Lagarius. He was like a post-hype prospect. The Braves traded him, and then he kind of blew up. Not blew up, but he's a fantasy catcher that's like relevant.
Right.
So there's just so many. Like I feel like Parada might be someone I would actually buy into because again he has that pedigree, but he's the end of the list is more important to me than the front, just because
Agreed.
the front is ridiculous. Like Salas, someone's gonna ask you for like a Jackson Holiday type of return, where you're never gonna return that. So it's just kind of a position that I don't love to really evaluate when it comes to catchers. I feel like you can just draft a random catcher in your first year player draft in like the 4th round. He might hit by the end of the year. If he doesn't, you just cut him.
Yeah, I will preface this too by saying I know some people may or may not have their first year player draft, but both Teal and Blake Mitchell will be in this year's. If you haven't had it already, they were just drafted in 2023. So those two guys, I know we said those were guys that I would try to buy low on. You may not be able to buy low on because you may not have even drafted them yet, but yeah, the top of the list, like you said, those are solidified guys. Where the back of the list is some guys that you might be able to like get a little bit of a throw in on a deal, things like that. Like might be able, somebody may not want to be holding on to them based on what the offer was, but
yes.
Agreed.
We have some breaking news, Jason.
What do we got?
Baseball related, unfortunately.
WWE related. Chargers
official.
Saw the rumors.
Yeah, I didn't think he'd leave.
Yeah,
I wonder how Dave's doing.
I was a little sad. I was hoping he might have a reunion with Chicago, but
yeah,
what can you do? What can you do?
I digress.
We digress. Like always, we digress on this podcast. Let's keep it going here. Next around the horn, we're gonna go to first baseman. Run down the list here real quick. First base, we have number 1, Samuel Bassell. 2, Kyle Manzardo. 3, Xavier Isaac. 4, Nolan Chanel. 5, Tyler Locklear. 6, Blaze Jordan. 7, help me on this one, Abmelec Ortiz. Hunter Goodman at 8. 9, Matt Mervis. 10, Nathan Martorella from San Diego.
I hope he's Italian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Like I'm all in on this guy. I'm going to buy him everywhere, wherever I can.
Yeah, exactly. Real quickly, I know Samuel Bassell,
catcher,
kind of catcher, but we were kind of figuring out what to do with him. He doesn't really profile as a catcher. I don't think he stays a catcher. He probably moves to first base. We just talked about him. Adley Rutschman he is blocked by Adley Rutschman for the next 10 to 15 years, which means they were probably trying to find a spot for his bat because he's been on fire. The minors. I think another big name too that's being overlooked right now, mostly because he was traded away from Tampa, is Kyle Manzardo to Cleveland. He could make an impact in 2024. Nolan Chanel, another first-year draft player, made his major league debut, held his own at the end of the season last year for LA. Could be a very big name coming, especially since he's already on the roster, so he'll already make an impact for you. I know there's your boy Blaze Jordan there. He's one of those guys that was a highly touted 16-year-old player. But I think this list is kind of similar to the catcher, where like the top 5 is more inclined of who I'd rather roster. Which, I mean, obviously that makes sense why they're ranked higher. But there's a few guys in the lower half. I feel like Ortiz from Texas just broke out in 2023, had a huge huge season in 2023. Goodman and Mervis, I'm pretty much both out on those guys. Even as a Cub fan, I don't.
Mervis is done.
We've seen them get there. A lot of these guys, don't get me wrong, they could come up and become like a bench bat or like the strong side of a platoon, but I don't foresee anything huge with them as far as production wise. But is there anybody that's on this list or just not on this list that you think should be, or someone that's? I mean, just off the top of your head,
No, not really. Again, there's just so many names here that I feel like.
Dapp's chiming in, says he likes the back of the list too, but he actually likes the personality first. So I get that.
Yeah, I don't. I'm a big Basolo guy. I traded him in the only league that I had him in, and like it's one that it was a trade I needed to make just because I didn't need Basolo because he won't be up anytime soon.
Right.
But we actually had a good talk. Well, not a talk, but about Nolan Chanot.
Yeah.
Last week, was it? Yeah, it was my first year player draft in my home league. He was sitting there at 24. I immediately jumped up to trade for it because I usually don't have picks in first year player drafts because I trade them every time because I'm always like, well, I'll just trade into the draft just because that's always fun. But he gets on base, and that's so important, especially for like having a first baseman in on your fantasy team that can get on base is so important. And he's also going to hit you 25 home. He like Shanola in like specifically him. He's not going to hit you 40 home runs, but he's going to attack in like the OBP and everywhere else. So I think he's someone that I'm definitely kind of excited. Not excited. It's hard to get excited about anybody that plays for the Angels because you're just like, with the Angels, but at least he has Trout there, and at least we saw the proof of concept with him in the bigs last season. And as for people, I don't see what Blaze Jordan. I know that's not like the most it's not the most predictive thing for me. I don't see him playing or at least succeeding with the Red Sox. I think he needs a change of scenery just because again we have Cassis, we have Devers that's going to be the DH soon. It just doesn't seem like organizational fit for him, and I'll be rooting for him. He seems like a good kid. He's still young, but I don't. First base is a lot thinner than I thought. Like, Manzardo, I would have, if you asked me last year, I would be like, well, he won't be a prospect next year, and here we are. He's the number 1 here, and you could argue that he's the number 1 here.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And like that's what we talked about at the beginning. Basallo right now technically a catcher. They did put him at first base a lot to end 2020-23 because I think they want to get his bat up to the base up to the base at some point. Obviously not going to do that with Adley. So Manzardo probably should have been the number 1 on the list, but
any of these guys, any of the top 5 could be number 1, and I'd be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest shocking things to me was Cleveland trading for Manzardo and then never giving him even a cup of coffee in 2023. That was a shock to me. He seems like he's ready. They traded him and they still just did not bring him up and give him at least a little bit of a sneak peek at what they had from him. Obviously I think we'll get that opportunity in 2024, but he's someone that again, good stuff and should be good, but it's always, your ears peak up when Tampa Bay trades away a player. Now, I know they did it they needed pitching help with all the injuries they had in 2023 with the pitching. So I think it was more of them trading a need for a need than it was to dump off Manzardo. So I think there's still something there for Manzardo. All right, let's jump on over to the second baseman here now. And let's go through the list here real quickly. Number 1, Tamar Johnson. 2, Connor Norby. 3, Jace Jung. 4, Matt Shaw. 5, Adele Amador. 6, Nick York. 7, Justin Foscue. 8, James Triantos. 9, Jorber Vivas. And 10, Juan Brito. I think one thing that before we get into a couple of these names, one thing we needed to call out is the amount of Boston and Cubs players at the top of these lists. When you've been bad, I guess, for the last few years and you get those high draft picks, you get a lot of those high name.
Fire your GM that drafted all of the draft picks.
But yeah, I think there's not too much surprise at the top of the list here. Also, shout out, this is one of the lists that I wrote the catcher in a second.
Proud of you, Jason.
Thank you, buddy. Couple call outs though with some of these. This one I had a lot of trouble with the top of the list. The back of the list is like a little bit because there's some guys that I wanted to rank higher, but I just couldn't do it because there's a lot of guys there's a few second basemen, which is kind of weird. Like you don't really tout second base prospects, right? There's not a lot of guys who're like, oh, I need a second base prospect, but like
it's just because the profile of all of them is just like
right. Like I feel like Matt Shaw has the ability to be like again, Matt Shaw, first year player draft eligible. Some of these guys are obviously first year player draft eligible players. Still had to rank him in the top 10 prospects. Justin Foscue, someone that I'm super high on. James Triantos, those guys are also I'm super high on, but I just couldn't put them higher than some of the other guys that are on the list. I think Tamar Johnson, obviously being pretty, a little bit on the younger side, still has the biggest upside, aside from maybe like Matt Shaw, but all around player. I think Tamar Johnson's better than Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw's got that huge power upside. Nick York, someone you're familiar with, I feel like has got a really good upside for second baseman. For the most part, there's of this list though. Is there anybody on it or somebody that you would be chasing or trying to acquire?
Chasing? I guess it would have to be Foscue just because that's someone that I paid attention to. Was it last year for his first year play draft? It might have been
Yeah, I
2
think so.
But again, if I told you that in 3 years we're gonna look at this and none of these players are on a major league team, I would not be like that surprised. Seeing this like in blue and white is really like none of these guys are gonna be like key contributors. I mean, they could be,
Right.
but like it's just so much likely that number 32 second base prospect could be. It's just such a crapshoot. And I understand that's kind of the name of the game of prospects. But like actually seeing these names, I'm like, some of these names just seem made up. Like, this is like a generator name. Like James Triatos. Like, yeah, that he's in MLB The Show. So is
Corbin Vivas
and Juan Brito. I've heard of Juan Brito.
Yeah.
I've heard of all of them. But in general, they just all seem like, okay, like they might hit 250, 6 home runs, 40 RBI. Like it's just such a crapshoot. I think Jace Jung just because of the bloodline too that we have there.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of these guys are really anything to write home about. But that's just kind of second base too. That's why you pray for the Mookie Betts being eligible at second base. Jake Berger is eligible at second base. You need to find a cheat code for second base. It's like Taysom Hill.
Yeah, exactly. And like again, a lot of times, sometimes, most recently, I feel like second base becomes that position where failed shortstops kind of just go to. You know what I mean? Like, you really don't get too many players that are drafted as second baseman. They kind of just fall there. I think a lot goes to show how shallow the position is too. When like 3 of the top 4 rankings here have been in the last 2 draft classes. So
exactly,
you know what I mean. So like, it's like it'll kind of show you that it's not a super deep position, just because again, when you get to the major league level, a lot of times players just like look at the Cubs, like not just the Cubs, there's a lot of teams move over there. They have a lot of shortstops. They just move more second base. With Nico Horner moving over to second with the signing of Dane Swanson. That's just kind of what happens. It becomes like that secondary position that nobody really, not that they don't want to play there, but it just kind of ends up being a position that they go to or transition to later in their career. All right, let's jump over to the last one we got here tonight. It's going to be the top 10 third baseman. Let me go through the list here real quick. Number 1, we got Junior Caminero. 2, Kobe Mayo. 3, Brock Wilken. 4, Colt Keith. 5, Orelvis Martinez. 6, Tyler Black. 7, Curtis Mead. 8, Justin Henry Malloy. Number 9, Sterling Thompson. 10, Devison De Los Santos.
Was he a Rule 5 guy?
He was, I believe, yes.
Yeah. He came from Arizona. I think I always saw
like
about him.
He there was something, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I think he was a Rule 5. If I look it up, but
very top heavy again.
Yep.
I do like Tyler Black. I feel like he came in as a second baseman and then he got too good, so they moved him to third.
Yeah,
but like he could be number 1 on the second base list.
Yeah.
But yeah, always buy into Colorado just because like he might be able to hit 50 home runs because of wherever they're at. The top guy's the guy. He's the Grand Poobah, if you will. Kobe Mayo last year was that was the time to buy him. This time last year, he really like emerged as like a guy, and that it's close to being that you just need to trust the Orioles with prospects. And I get that like it was easy for them to draft
top 5 for the top 5 for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, Heston Kjerstad. I mean, he hasn't really made it yet, but like Jackson Holiday looks like an all-world player. Like all of these people were in the top 3.
Yeah.
But you just need to trust the organization, and that's going to be something that I'm going to look into.
Yeah, no, I do believe Junior Caminero is somebody that should be number 1. But I wouldn't be shocked if Kobe Mayo ends up being the better player. I think Kobe Mayo's a really good player. He's going to be a really, really good player for Baltimore. Just another another prospect in that system that's just exploding, and like they're almost at a point where like they may have to start trading away some of these guys because they have so many of them. Guy we talked about at second base too with Connor Norby, another guy that it's like they just have these infielder prospects that it's like
just trade for Dylan Cease already. My God,
I know, right? Again, it doesn't hurt when you're picking top 5, top 10 for the last 20 years. That helps, but
there are teams that mess that up. Look at Detroit. Like Detroit's bad. And I get it's injuries, but don't draft pitchers. Like they haven't drafted pitchers in the top 5 unless Grayson Rodriguez was, but I don't think he was.
Right. Yeah. No. Kobe Mayo I think has a really good chance to be right now better than Junior Caminero, but I wouldn't say that he's leaps and bounds or anything like that. I think Colt Keith is another one that's at the top of the list here, but he's obviously really good. Again, another guy's drafted super high in the draft by Detroit. One of the names that stood out to me on this list, and it's the one that's been on maybe getting a little bit of prospect fatigue. That's Orelvis Martinez.
Yeah.
This is a guy
in the league, Jason.
I believe he was like the international class of like 2019, maybe even longer ago than that. Just has not really developed at the way that Toronto has wanted him to. They've even moved. He was originally a shortstop. They've now moved him over to third base. Let's see. Yeah, he was the 2019. At that point, it may have even been J2 class. Just one of those names I think is getting a lot of prospect fatigue. Everyone's been seeing this guy at the top 10 position or top 100, top 150 for a while now. Still just has not had the development that people had hoped for. I know that obviously some people, progression's not always linear. He did have a really good 2023. So let's see if maybe he can continue that development going into 2024. Still only 22. So a lot there to be desired. I know, still only 22 years old, even though he's been stateside since 2019. Still, made it all the way to AAA last year, 2023, and he hit combined between AA and AAA. What's that? 28 home runs, and doesn't strike out a ton. I mean, not ideal, but walks a lot. So he could just be one of those, late bloomers. You know what I mean? It's a guy that again gets a lot of. Could be a buy low opportunity too. Yeah, exactly. Look for him in Toronto's major league roster in about 2025 or 6.
Yeah, and he'll still be 25.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. They might get him try to see what we got them in this year, but
or just trade him.
Yeah, that could be too. But yeah, I mean that's I think that's all the nothing too exciting again. Like seems like a lot of the top heavy again. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's going to wrap up this week's episode on top 10 prospect previews. We got a couple. I saved a lot of the good ones for the part 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I got shortstop, outfield, pitcher to go. Woo. So make sure you guys all come back next week. We got a lot of exciting, the more exciting positions to dive into next week.
This was a pretty tough position class. Like you don't think of it. I think just because all of them are at the other positions.
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll find out next week.
Yep. Tune in next week. See you, Nick.